Hi, I wanted to come on and explain how I would love to celebrate Neurodiversity Week. So my name's Lindsay. I was diagnosed with severe ADHD about 3 years ago now. So I was 43 at the time after having 2 kids. I now suspect I'm ADHD as well. But from that point, there's been a massive learning curve about how I can find a career that plays to my strengths and minimises my weaknesses. And I know I won't be the only person dealing with that sort of change around midlife. But yeah, over the last few years, looking at the way the narrative has gone in the media about neurodiversity, I feel like we're all massively missing a bit of a trick, really. I think it's far better to talk about cognitive inclusion because we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. So part of what I'd love to suggest is dropping that term superpower, which I feel is a little bit of toxic positivity. Everybody has a superpower. Everybody has their own strengths. Everyone has their own weaknesses. And we all have environments where they are best suited to pulling those strengths out and mitigating some of the weaknesses that we all inevitably have. And I thought, in the spirit of being open, I'd love to share a couple of my strengths and weaknesses. So my strengths are compassion, especially with people that need a bit of support, or maybe they're asking for help understanding something they've never been able to understand before. That's a big one. Other than that, I love public speaking. I love going out and talking to people. And the other big one for me is strategy. So whether it's creating a strategy on my course and writing essays about things, whether it was in communications in my old work, doing copywriting, I love absorbing myself into market industry information and working out the best way to take good bits and apply that to a client, a person, or an organisation. Anyway, I'd love to know what all of yours are and for everyone to become more open about it. What I wanted to say, though, was that with regards to my weaknesses, given that I am neurodivergent, they do relate to the fact that I've got a neurological condition, which means my prefrontal cortex occasionally gives me challenges with my executive function. So not all the time, but certain elements of planning and prioritising can be difficult, probably with the admin. Prioritising the admin above and beyond everything else, when I find it quite difficult to concentrate on, is a brilliant example of that. And everybody's executive function can change. We can grow or decrease in capacity as we age. That's a big one. We know that our cognitive function does start to decline a little bit as we get older. Not to say we can't do things to keep flexing that, but it's a fact. Pregnancy, huge one. Menopause, really big one. Mental health, if anyone ever goes through a phase of suffering with depression or anxiety, your executive function can challenge a bit, and we know that, you might suddenly start missing appointments because you're not fully paying attention anymore. So the big thing I'd like to suggest is, this week, we drop that term superpower. We start to change our mind a little bit, and rather than look at people's weaknesses, we start to consider if that weakness is an executive function challenge, perhaps, that may come and go at different times in life. And I think in terms of accommodating anybody's challenges, I think it's brilliant this week. I'm sure people will be talking about it a lot. The fact we ask about adjustments and accommodations, we're getting closer to making a more inclusive world of work. But I feel like to get over the next hurdle and to really embed ourselves in inclusive work cultures, the biggest thing we can do is change our attitudes a little bit and move away from that whole one-size-fits-all way of working. There's some really big, obvious things we can do to make people feel more comfortable in their roles. That might be things like changing little elements of a job spec, Maybe accepting that some people don't want to go out and do public-facing meetings as much as others. Some people might be better suited to writing a hell of a lot more proposals than other people because they're brilliant at doing that. They're brilliant at analysing information. They're brilliant at critical thinking. Maybe someone else is better suited to other skills. So my big takeaways for this week are: think about cognitive inclusion. Think about executive function challenges, and that just doesn't apply only to neurodivergent folk. Stop this term superpower. I think it's really making a mess for everyone, neurodivergent and not. And yeah, just think a bit more about inclusive ways we can work and why we should and shouldn't tailor job specs sometimes towards people's strengths, because let's face it, the longer we allow people to play to their strengths, they'll feel safe at work. They'll know they can be there and contribute. And that will improve engagement, it will improve job satisfaction and ultimately retention. And we can stop chucking money away on recruiting the wrong people. But anyway, I just thought I'd leave you with those thoughts today. And I hope everybody has a brilliant week. And I hope everybody can try and just adjust our lens a little bit and see if we can all start to think a little bit differently about an inclusive future of work. Thank you.